please consider supporting my Patreon so that I can continue to ramble on about stuff between making toys for people. Hey everybody, this is Wakeangel2K1's, and since I work in the video game section at a Toys R Us, I'm always within 10 feet of the entire shelf of World and Nintendo action figures, and sometimes I just get ideas rattling around in my head about what I want to see in that line. So I tried to make a list because I haven't made a list in a while, and I couldn't limit it to 10, so I decided to go with the top 15. So let's get a couple things out of the way. Yeah, ideally, I would want the entire roster of Super Smash Bros. To eventually be rendered in affordable action figure form. I mean, I know a lot of them actually do have collector figures, but, you know, like, you can drop $50 for a Marth Figma, or, you know, World of Nintendo can eventually bring one around for like 12, you know? It's just nice to have these affordable figures. Now, there should be some honorable mentions. You know, these are the characters that I would like to see and they would fit in, but I know practically they wouldn't be able to get made because Jakks Pacific doesn't have the license to do them. Although that doesn't mean that other toy companies can't do them in a related form. Remember, Tomy made perfectly serviceable Mewtwo and Greninja action figures that totally blend in with the World of Nintendo line, at least for a Smash Bros. Display. And they also made Mega Lucario too, but I didn't feel like digging that out. So yeah, my top 4 picks would of course be Bayonetta, Sonic, Mega Man, and Shovel Knight. I mean, I've actually made customs of Bayonetta and Shovel Knight, and you know, like, we haven't had a good American release Mega Man figure in such a long time. And I really want to see a Sonic the Hedgehog action figure that has the same level of articulation as the Jazzwares figures had, but would be 4 inches tall so that he could scale with the World of Nintendo figures. Is that really too much to ask? Alright, so let's get down into the real list. Number 15, the Mii Fighters. Yeah, the Mii Fighters. This is actually so simple to do. I mean, the Mii Fighters are intentionally designed with a very simple template, and they're just very basic action figures, and their frames aren't that far off from the already released Villager from Animal Crossing. A really nice gimmick you can do with the Mii Fighters as well would be to have them be custom swappable. Like, to give them all kinds of weapons and holding things hands. Like, you could have them have closed fists for the melee fighter, a big old blaster arm for the shooter, or, you know, holding things hands to hold swords. And you can even make a gimmick for these figures where you can give them a blank head, where the head would be made out of a material that either they would provide stickers or decals, or something that you could draw on with you know, pins and stuff to make your own custom amiibos, you know, because that's what they're for, customizing. I know this means we'll see a lot of action figures with penises for faces, but I still think that Mii Fighter would be a good addition to the World of Nintendo line. Number 14, Captain Falcon. Okay, now this one really should be a no-brainer, because just look at Captain Falcon. Doesn't he just look like a guy that wants to be an action figure? I mean, I'm pretty sure that almost identical characters have been made for the Marvel Legends line. I bet I could walk into a Kmart or Toys R Us right now, find a 4-inch Marvel Legends figure, and make a perfectly serviceable Captain Falcon just by adding a shoulder pauldron and giving him the helmet. I mean, it's really not that hard. I don't know, maybe it's a little bit too stereotypical beefy buck Superman action figure, and the World of Nintendo line is more about the cartoony characters that Nintendo puts out, but Captain Falcon has been with us for such a long time. He's an iconic part of Nintendo's history, which is why he's in Smash Brothers. You know, if we had an action figure of him, it might drum up interest in the franchise so they could get their asses into making another F-Zero game. I mean, you know that there hasn't been a real F-Zero game since the GameCube era? I mean, unless you count the mini game in you know, the Nintendo world for the Wii U, which like had wind-up versions of the F-Zero racers, but you know, really, a proper F-Zero game we haven't seen since the GameCube era. It's been longer than Metroid. So yeah, I really would like to see Captain Falcon, and he'd actually be one of the easiest stereotypically buck superhero action figures to make. Number 13, Zero Suit Samus. Alright, this is another one that should be a no-brainer. I mean, this is one of the ones where I bought the Figma for it, because, it's Samus. But really, this would be another incredibly easy figure to make. In fact, I've already made a custom of her using a 4-inch Black Widow from the Marvel Legends line. A long time ago, in fact. It was one of my earlier customs. But, it's to see it done with Jakks Pacific's techniques. Plus, they could do the more updated version of her with those big, funny rocket stilettos. I don't really think I feel the need to elaborate here, because it's obvious. She would be a really simple figure for them to make, and she's a wildly popular character. They've already got 3 different color variants of the regular Samus figure, 4 if you count the metallic variant, which I think was an exclusive to some place. So yeah, why not? Make Zero Suit Samus, guys. Why haven't you done it yet? Number 12, Rob. I really don't think that there's another character more important to Nintendo's history, aside from Mario himself, than good old robotic operating buddy. Back in the 1980s, after the video game crash, stores really didn't want to put more video game consoles on the market because they had been saturated with a bunch of lackluster consoles. Enter Nintendo, who actually disguised their new Nintendo Entertainment System by putting in a little robot toy to sit next to it. That way, they literally tricked toy stores into thinking that it was some robot toy gimmick, and snuck in the fact that it's a video game console. So, yeah, Rob is actually historically, literally the toy that one of the first toys that Nintendo ever made. I mean, they started out as a card game company, and then they went into video games in the 80s, but they disguised themselves as a toy company at first with this guy. It's actually perfect that he would be a toy today. An actual properly articulated action figure of Rob would actually be pretty easy to do, all things considered, because his show model shows where all the articulation points could easily go. And, like Nintendo's Trojan Horse, which almost single-handedly saved video games as an industry, really, really deserves to actually be represented in real plastic. I know we got a really nice amiibo, but I want something that I can actually mess around with. Number 11, Pit. This is another guy that's been totally available as a Figma for the longest time, and he's even had a repaint as a Figma when they released Dark Pit. But really, I'm flabbergasted that this guy hasn't actually been in the world of Nintendo line yet, because Pit has an awesome design, and he just looks amazing, and I love him. And Kid Icarus Uprising was one of my favorite games on the early 3DS. I know the controls for it were a little bit clunky, but I feel like with a little bit of tweaking, they can make a sequel for that game that will be so great. Of course, as much as I would love to see a Pit figure, and easily it would be repainted in a Dark Pit, and, having the ability to have both of them at the total cost of $24, instead of having to get them for almost $50 each, that would, again, the lower cost of World of Nintendo is just much better. But there is one more character from the franchise that I would want so much more than him, and that's the next on the list. Number 10, Palutena, or Palutena, however you want to pronounce it. I think I've heard it both ways. I love Palutena's design. It is frankly amazing. I love the staff, I love the buckler, I love the glowing wings, which would probably be realized as translucent plastic. I love her long flowing green hair. There's just not a single thing about Palutena that I do not absolutely love. She is just fantastic in every way. We do have a plastic representation of her as an amiibo, of course, but I really want a proper articulated action figure of her. And you know what? It would be good for them to make in the 6-inch line. Yeah, the World of Nintendo line only has 4 characters in their 6-inch scale. That's Bowser, Donkey Kong, Toon Ganondorf, and the baby Metroid, which, Goo Giant. Those are fine choices, but it's been a long time since they made any 6-inch scale ones. Everything else has been in the 4-inch scale. So, Palutena would be a perfect character to make in the 6-inch scale. Since she's a literal goddess, and, you know, gods are typically depicted as towering over the little mortal peons. Plus, you know, it would make her suitably taller than Pit. Number 9, Kirby and Meta Knight. Yeah, I'm cheating a little bit by putting multiple characters in a single slot, but honestly, I didn't really think that that there's nothing I could say to pick one over the other. I mean, Meta Knight has that awesome design and the dark character that everybody loves, but Kirby is just iconic Nintendo. He's been around with us for pretty long. He's one of the first Game Boy titles, and I think the original NES game came out almost the same year as Kid Icarus and Metroid, so Kirby is up there. And the only real articulated figures I know of these two guys are the Nendroids with magnetic joints. Now, I know it would be kind of difficult to give joints to characters that have such stumpy little arms and legs, but I've seen the World of Nintendo line do characters like the Goomba from Mario, so I really think that they could actually make a pretty well-realized Kirby and Meta Knight. At least, I would hope they could. Number 8. Anyone from Fire Emblem, but give priority to Marth. I always felt sorry for the Fire Emblem series because it doesn't really get that much love. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are great Fire Emblem games that have been coming out recently, like they had Conquest and the other one that came out last year, plus the new one that just came out literally a couple of days ago, and you know, for a franchise that they really underestimate its popularity here in America, it's a pretty big roster in Smash Brothers. I'm pretty sure there are almost as many Fire Emblem characters in Super Smash Brothers as there are Mario characters, and that's really saying something. Plus, like, Marth just has a really great design. He's a medieval-style knight with a really cool sword. I mean, he should be really easy to sell based on his appearance alone, but as he's one of the most popular characters for people to play as in Super Smash Brothers, plus the fact that his amiibo was so criminally under-released in our territory that he still commands ridiculous markup prices on eBay, so it suggests that the Hero King really should be in the World of Nintendo line as well. Number 7, the Wii Fit Trainer. I know, this is probably the most WTF choice on the list. I mean, heck, she was probably the most WTF choice for the Smash Brothers roster. But, you know what makes me believe that this would be a really popular figure for the line? When I tried to Google an image of the Wii Fit Trainer, like I've been doing for all the other characters so far, I couldn't find an official reference of her because there was page after page after page of fan art. I mean, this character has received a ton of love from the community through fan art, and only about half of it is fetish porn. So, I mean, she's obviously really popular. Plus, you have a great variant of her in that you can also make the male version of her. You know, so you have two Wii Fit Trainers. Plus, I gotta admit, I have a personal bias because the Wii Fit Trainer would be a really nice blank base to make whatever custom action figure I want because of its coloring and sculpt. Just full disclosure, I'm being honest here. Number 6, Crystal from the Star Fox series. The recent waves of World of Nintendo have seen us receive all 4 of the main cast of Star Fox, which is really great. But, you know, like, there's still more to go. I hope World of Nintendo doesn't consider themselves finished with Star Fox just because you got the main team, because I really would love to see Crystal come out as a figure as well. I mean, I've made 2 different customs of her, one in each costume design that I've seen her in, and, she's a really popular character on the internet. This is another one where if you try to Google her, you'll find a whole bunch of fan art. I'm pretty sure that the furry community even has an appreciation month for her. So yeah, she's a super popular character, and I imagine a figure of her would sell quite well. Number 5, Team Starwolf. Yeah, like, you know, in any action figure franchise, there's often the problem where all the heroes and protagonists get made, but then the villains are underrepresented. Which is a shame because, you know, you kind of need bad guys to fight against, otherwise your heroes don't have anything to do. And in fact, in a lot of franchises, heroes are defined by the actions of their villains. And Team Starwolf they just have a huge variety of really cool designs. So Oikani, Leon, Wolf, Pigma, I forgot the Panther's name. Oh my god, how did I forget his name? He's the new guy anyway. But yeah, they have really great designs, and they deserve a spot on your toy shelf as much as Team Fox does. So yeah, like Team Wolf for Roll the Nintendo. Let's see that get done. Number 4, Ocarina of Time style Ganondorf. Yeah, this is another candidate for the 6-inch line, as World of Nintendo has only made Toon Ganondorf so far. And I actually went to the trouble of seeking out an original Toy Biz Ganondorf on eBay, just because this is really one of my favorite depictions of the character, and I'm pretty sure he's one of the most famous. The World of Nintendo line has already made just about every other Ocarina of Time character. We have Link, Zelda, Sheik, Dark Link, and even Skull Kid. So the main antagonist of that game really needs to have a figure himself, but it really should be a 6-inch figure. Like Palutena, this is another way where they can expand their 6-inch line to boost up the roster and prove that they're still doing 6-inch figures. Number 3, Ganon. Yeah, perhaps the only villain more iconic to the franchise of Legend of Zelda than Ganondorf himself is Ganon, the giant monster that he became. Ganon has had many forms over the years, but if you're going to make a figure of him, I would want one of the more humanoid ones. Perhaps how he appeared at the end of Ocarina of Time, or the more fatter, piggish-looking one from, like, the Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, or even the original Legend of Zelda game on NES. But this guy should be a really big figure. Maybe a 6-inch would be too small for him. I can't imagine this character being anything less than 8 inches tall. But hey, you know how World of Nintendo likes to put out those really big figures like the 20-inch tall Link and Mario? If anyone deserved to have a 20-inch figure made of them, it's this guy. Especially if you're going to make the humanoid version of him. So yeah, World of Nintendo, go ahead and make a giant version of Ganon. That would be awesome. Number 2, the rest of the Toon Zelda cast. Yeah, again, just like with Team Star Wolf, I'm kind of cheating by introducing multiple characters, but I don't care. We've seen so many characters from the Ocarina of Time branch of Legend of Zelda featured in the World of Nintendo line, but only a couple of the Toon Zelda characters. We got 2 variants of Wind Waker Link and Toon Ganondorf, and that's it. The Toon Zelda series has a lot of really great characters in it. Most notable of all being Tetra, and you can also make the Toon version of Zelda. And one of my personal favorite villains that I've already made as a custom, Vaati. Plus there's a whole bunch of memorable side characters like, say, Linebeck. Yeah, the Toon Zelda side of the equation has some really untapped potential that would actually have a lot of kid appeal, because these characters actually do, connect with younger children more than the more serious Ocarina of Time variants do. At least, that's what I've observed. Number 1, Ridley. As if I could choose anyone else for the number 1 slot. Ridley is easily one of the coolest monster/villain designs ever created by anything from the Nintendo franchise. He is just awesome. He's a giant mutant dragon monster man, and made all the more terrifying by the fact that he's actually a sentient being and leader of an intergalactic platoon or troop of space pirates. Like, he is the big nasty dragon, but he's also your Lex Luthor. He is perhaps one of the most intimidating villains in all of Nintendo canon. And he has the most fantastic design. It's actually heavily inspired by the Xenomorph from the H.R. Geiger designs. Like, you can kind of see it with the visible ribcage and the elongated legs, and especially that tail. He's like a giant dragon xenomorph, except with wings. He is a flying xenomorph with the gigantic crocodile jaws. Like, as if you couldn't make the xenomorph any scarier. This figure should also be huge. He would be a candidate for their 6-inch line, but he really should be bigger. I think, like, not counting the length of his tail, the figure should be like 8 inches tall at the very least. Actually, talking about the Xenomorphs, he should be about the same size as one of NECA's Xenomorph figures. Actually, that's an idea for a custom. I mean, those Xenomorph figures are kind of expensive, but if I ever find one on sale, maybe. Anyway, that's my choice for the top 15 picks for the World and Nintendo line that I'd really like to see. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there something you think I missed? Why don't you share in the comments? Get a discussion going. This is Wakeangel2K1's signing off.